Hello, everybody. I'm back. This is Aaron, and this is episode 11 of my How to Draw series. And today we're doing the first video on legs. I'm going to do multiple videos on legs. We're doing male legs today. I had originally decided that I was going to do male and female, but they're really so similar. I'm just going to do multiple leg videos. I'm writing some notes here. It says, and I have a hard time seeing what I'm looking at, but it says the legs are very important to the structure of the body. The human figure is half legs. If you didn't have legs, you'd just be a torso. So they're very important to get right. And if we don't draw legs correctly, our drawings are going to suffer. And I'll go into this more maybe in the second leg video, but it's really all about balancing your figures with your legs and the ground. And I don't know. It's hard to get right. So in this video, we're going to start at the very, very beginning. And in this drawing that I'm doing here, I'm showing you, again, you can follow along. I'm showing you in extremely simple terms what the legs are made of. They're obviously made of bone, right? But there's 3 different bones of the legs, or actually 4 different parts, and I'm writing them here. The hip joint is the first part, the femur, and then the tibia, and then the fibula. That's the anatomy for the legs. So the 2 little balls that I'm drawing on the bottom and the top are, I don't know the anatomical name for them, but those are the ends of the bones technically. And then here I'm just noting what each part is. Oh yeah, I'm saying exactly what I just said. We must learn the parts of the legs first. It's just better to understand what you're doing. This is why I'm doing this, because legs are tough. They're hard for me to draw even after all these years. I still have trouble with them. So I'm just giving you a very, very simple stick figure type view of what legs are. And you can draw this if you want. If you're following these lessons, you can draw this. It might help you understand. That's why I'm doing it, so that you can follow along. I'm just writing a note here about what the fibula actually does. It's a smaller bone on the side of the tibia. It really supports the ankle, and then a lot of the muscles are attached to it. Now after we've done this stick figure to get an idea of what these bones are, or what the leg is made of, we can draw some simple shapes. And I'm just doing rectangular squares at this point. We're not getting detailed right now. So again, follow along, pause the video, do what I'm doing. The reason I want you to do these, follow along, I know this is boring, right? The reason I want you to do this is so you understand it. You don't really learn unless you do it. You can sit here all day and watch the video, but if you're not actually practicing it with a pencil in your hand, you're not really going to learn what I'm trying to teach you. So here what I'm doing is I'm measuring the proportions of the top leg and the bottom leg to make sure that visually it looks correct, because anatomically the top and bottom leg are identical in size. And I think I actually write this right here. Yep. The femur and the tibia are the same length. The exact same length. The bottom and the femur and the tibia, same length. So if you when you're drawing, if you're drawing a front view pose like this, if you make your two sections of leg the exact same length, it'll look accurate. Legs are hard because you're drawing them and then you think it's long enough and then it ends up looking wrong, but you don't know why. And it could either be too long or too short. My problem with legs is I draw them too short, and so I have to adjust them constantly. And I mean, I'll draw it and then I'll know that it doesn't look right, and then I have to erase it and then redraw it. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Our goal is to become the best artist we could possibly be. That's why we're doing this lesson. So we just want to take our time, pay attention, and measure your proportions. I'm going to write a note about that also in a second here. Oh, I'm saying let's draw the legs with a little bit more detail now. The femur and the tibia are not straight. So in that first example that I drew with the rectangles, that was just an example, just to get the idea across. The bones are actually not straight. They're actually slightly curved. I'm drawing them probably more curved than they are in real life. But sometimes when you're drawing, you have to exaggerate to convey either emotion or movement. You have to exaggerate reality when you're drawing sometimes. So, and I'm going to do an example in a few minutes, and I'll show you the difference, what it looks like when you draw a completely straight leg on paper versus what you draw when you draw one that's actually curving the way it's supposed to. Let me see. I can't remember if I wrote a note about this, but the femur curves one way and then the tibia curves in the opposite direction. Oh, I did write that. I wrote that right above. They actually curve in opposite directions. They're not straight. So here I'm doing a very basic shape to show you, taking that rectangular shape and curving it to show the point of how you're curving in one direction and then you're going in the opposite direction. So for the leg, you're almost like making a very slight S shape with the leg. And I just drew there, I just wrote there, don't draw this, where it's a completely straight leg. Don't draw that. First, I don't know the reason, but for some reason, when you draw a leg completely straight like that, it doesn't look right. It just doesn't look good. And here I'm showing you how what I drew on the right there, that looks a lot more like a realistic leg than if I were to complete that other leg and be completely straight. Oh, yeah, let's see. Oh, I'm saying you can take the stick figure and change the angles. So I want you to start drawing legs. You need to start with the stick figure. Don't start with these shapes that I'm drawing on this page. The reason you got to start with the stick figure is because you really need to learn how to draw them before you add any form at all. So I'm doing a side view. The reason it looks like a side view is because of the way the foot is turned. Now I'm doing a front view. So really with the leg, the direction of your foot and the direction of the kneecap is really going to tell you the direction the leg is turning. If your kneecap is kind of off-center, then it's like probably a 3/4 view. If your kneecap is in front, it's probably a side view. Or if the foot is turned to the side, it's a side view. But that's how you tell the difference, because it's the same shape. Mostly the same shape, whether you draw it on the front or the rear. It also depends on, if you draw it on the side, then you have to move the calf muscle. So it gets complicated. We'll go into that more later, but this is just the beginning stages. And again, pause this video and follow what I'm doing, because you have to learn how to draw legs correctly. You have to learn that. The legs create the balance of the figure. And if your legs are not right, it's not going to look right. Oh, so what I just wrote there is the shape of the front and back leg, or the front and back view rather, is exactly the same. It's identical. But to make it look like a back view, you have to change the muscles that you're drawing, and you have to change the angle of the foot that you're drawing. See how this example I'm drawing, now it looks like you're looking at the leg from the back side instead of the front, because I drew the calves and I drew the the hamstring indentations. So I put a little anatomy in there to indicate that we're looking at the back side and not the front. But it's the same shape. It's the same silhouette. Bern Hogarth talks about that in his book, Dynamic Figure Drawing. He talks about something called reversible projection, which is basically the same thing that I just mentioned. The silhouette can be used to create either a front view or a rear view. So now we're drawing some basic legs using what we've learned up to this point in this video. Again, pause the video and follow along. So make sure you check your proportions. We're just doing the basic front view right now. Make sure you check your proportions. The top leg is the same length as the bottom leg. So the femur and the tibia are the same length. Now, realistically, these are probably too curved, but, for the sake of the lesson, I'm just showing you what it looks like. And you could probably get away with that in a drawing, but it's more curved than reality. Excuse me. Now I'm drawing, I think, the side view. But do you see how it already looks more realistic when you curve? When you not only curve the legs, but you curve them one way and then you curve them the other way. It automatically looks a little bit more realistic when you do that, rather than just drawing a completely straight leg with like a ruler or something. The note I wrote there was the leg can be drawn as cylinders. So now, once you understand how to lay out your basic shapes, now you can turn them into cylinders and start messing with them a little bit more. I can't read what I wrote there. I'm sure you'll be able to see it on the TV. Watch these videos. I haven't said this yet. Watch these videos on a large screen. It looks great. It's 1080p. Doing it on the phone. Everybody watches their videos on the phone. Gotta get on a high-def TV. It looks so good. Oh, it says start adding form with a cylinder. I couldn't even read it. Okay, now what we're doing here, okay, I would say pause the video here and follow along. Now what we're doing is we're going to add both legs together. We drew the leg separately. Now that we know how to draw the leg, now we can add it to the hips. So we're just starting with a stick figure. This is how I draw my legs because they're difficult. This is how I draw them to get them correct. I do a very, very boring stick figure, and then I add all the form. And I'm being very careful. I'm taking my time. I'm measuring my proportions. I'm not worrying about whether it takes me 30 seconds. Who cares? You're learning. So get all your measurements right. Draw in the stick figure the way I have it. And once you do that, then you can start adding form. But do you see how easy that was now that you are drawing just stick figures for legs instead of trying to draw the entire leg with all the anatomy all at once? If you do it this way, it's going to be a lot easier for you to draw legs. And if you don't believe me, just try it. And I think that you'll find that it'll become a lot easier to make your legs look believable. And here I'm just saying I use stick figures to make my legs look correct and get them in the right spot. It's a lot easier to position your legs wherever you want them if you're drawing them as stick figures first. It's so much easier to just say, okay, I want the leg here, I want it to go here, I want it to bend, I want it to move. You know, don't draw all that extra detail until you draw your stick figures. And I'm also saying here, I struggle with legs even now after all these years. And like I said, I've been drawing over a third of my life. And I still struggle with them. They're hard. Because you have to get them lined up correctly. You have to get them balanced correctly if you're standing. I actually just thought of a tip for the second leg video, but I can mention it here. The legs are basically the same width also, so you gotta keep an eye on your widths. That can be a reason why legs don't look good, is just the proportions are bad and wrong. Like one leg might be thinner than the other, something like that. I can go over that in video 2 of how to draw legs, but which will most likely be next week, but that could be a reason. So here I'm just making these up out of my head. I'm not looking at a reference to do these. These are taking me some time because I have to really think about it, but this is why we do this, so that we can learn how to start creating on our own without the use of reference every single time. And like I said, that's something I got to break out of, and myself, I got to start trying to use less reference. Not that reference is bad, but we're artists. We want to be the creators. We don't want to just copy something that somebody has already made. So here I'm making up all these leg angles and poses myself, just thinking about it. This one here that I'm drawing now is a little bit odd. It didn't really come out very good. The anatomy is kind of weird on these legs here. I think I went a little too extreme with my curves on that third example. You'll see in a second. So now what I'm doing is I drew the stick figure forms for the legs, and I'm saying, okay, now we're going to add some form and detail to these stick figures. So now I'm taking what I know about form and, you know, my anatomy of the leg and how it's supposed to be shaped, and I'm applying it to the stick figure that I, you know, put on the paper there. And if applying the anatomy is too hard for you, what you can do is you can just create tubes. You can create tubes to practice. You don't have to do like something. You don't have to do something that looks completely realistic, like an actual leg. If it's too hard for you, you can do something a little bit more simple. But you need to start learning. At this point, we need to start learning form and how to draw cylinders, because the legs and the arms are cylinder forms. That's their the basic shape of legs and arms is basically cylinders. So here I'm drawing a pair of legs based on what I know from my anatomy, and then, you know, based on the stick figures that I drew, and then I'm putting the feet on all of these to ground them on the ground, basically, to make it look more solid. We're not going to get into feet in this lesson. We will get into feet in a future episode. So here's another one. I actually like this pose that I made up. I just kind of had the one leg kind of bending backwards, and then you know, because I made that up, I had a very easy time figuring out where the foot would be, because I drew that stick figure skeleton first. So I knew where the foot was supposed to go. I can be honest and say I have a hard time drawing what I can't see. I have a hard time drawing what's not there. And so it's very challenging to make it up out of your mind. But you have to really know what would it look like if it was turned in this position. You have to really you have to really be thinking about that and know how the body moves well enough to know how to draw it. So it's tough. But again, like this pose I'm making up out of my head, that's why you see me struggling a little bit with this foot, because I'm making up the angle out of my head. I'm not looking at anything. It's okay to struggle, but if you need reference, I mean, use reference. And again, I've said it before, I can't use reference for this because I'm using my phone to film. That's all I have to. That's all I have to film with. So the other thing I don't like about reference is using reference can slow you down, like big time. You just scour the internet trying to find a good reference photo, and you can't find what you're looking for, and so you're like, well, I don't know what to do now because I can't find a good reference, so I don't know what to do. And reference just, I don't know, it slows you down. You want to get to drawing, and then you spend all this time looking for reference photos. So I think I got that foot, good enough. It's not perfect, but for the lesson, it's fine. And then here what I was trying to do is draw two legs that are crossing, one in front of the other. I think I went too extreme with the curve. Because legs they're not really this curved. It's a little extreme. I mean, it kind of looks like a, Elastigirl or something like that from Incredibles. Like, it just looks a little fake. So I went a little too far. I think if I curved these legs less, they'd look better. And here what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to fix it up a little bit because I know that I over exaggerated it. So I know that it doesn't look right, and so I'm just trying to fix some of the anatomy to make it look a little less fake, I guess. Like it looks like Gumby or Elastigirl or something. Like they're very odd. So I wouldn't recommend drawing this pose because most people that are probably watching these videos are going to just copy what I draw. So I wouldn't recommend drawing this one because it's not accurate. I didn't do a very good job on this one. Yeah, and again, I'm really struggling with this one. I'm trying to get it to look halfway decent, even though I know it's wrong. I think it's just too curved. It didn't come out right. Really, I think honestly, it might be like the back leg. That back leg is just way too curved. It wouldn't curve that much. Yeah, here I'm saying this is an odd pose. Basically trying to say I didn't do a good job drawing this. So, don't draw that one. So here I'm drawing another angle. What I'm trying to do with this one is show you how the hip can move in almost any position, and you can move the leg anywhere you want, really. So now what I'm trying to do is kind of rotate the leg and rotate it out. So it's basically twisting out to the side, and show you how how you can draw that. If you have your stick figure in place, you would be able to get it to look halfway decent. I mean, I'm not going for realism in this series. This is art. This is, you're trying to learn how to draw, but you're also trying to learn, if you like figures, you're trying to learn figures too. I mean, I'm not a realism artist. I like art that looks like a representation of reality, and that's what we're doing. But do you see how that leg looks like it's twisted out to the side? That's why I drew that, because the hip can move in a billion different positions. Up to the side, to the like down, forward, back, sideways, twisting in, out. It's got a lot of rotation and movement. Yeah, I think I'm fiddling. I think I'm fiddling with this one because I really don't like it, and so I'm trying to just make it not suck so much. So that example sucks. And here I'm just reviewing what we've already done. I think we're going to do one more page of examples. We got a couple minutes left here. So here I think, oh, this is from the side. I'm kind of thinking of a leg that's kind of just bending. And the way I drew his hips, he's basically like in a sitting position. So I'm kind of I'm trying to imagine a guy or a girl, whatever, just kind of sitting there. And so again, we're not getting into anatomy, like we're not going to get into the muscles. I'm drawing some of the muscles so that they look a little bit more realistic, but we're not doing that in this series. So here I'm just noticing that the foot is off a little bit, a little too small. Made it a little bigger. It's a little better. Put in the ankle bone. So here I'm drawing a pair of legs that are, the knees are knocking together and the feet would be turned inward, like a duck pose or something. And so I'm drawing that, starting with the stick figure, then going to your basic cylinder. And we're not even completing the form until we have all that in. So here I'm just reworking the feet again. So what I'm noticing here is by drawing the hips in, I'm noticing that I had my legs way too wide, so I'm redrawing them. I had them too far. I had them spread too far out. For male hips, it's way too far. That looks better. And again, these are not like, these aren't like, comic book quality legs or anything. I'm just showing you what they look like. If I was doing this for a comic book, I'd spend a lot more time on them. So here I'm just on the left there, I'm just trying to, I don't know, go a little farther, create like a torso that's kind of bending over. And I put the chair in the back. I think I put the chair in the underneath him. Or a chair underneath him. I can't remember if I do one more pose or if we're gonna stop in just a minute here. We're almost done. We got a couple minutes left, but let's see what else. Oh, here I'm just writing, you can make the legs turn in almost any direction. Saying get familiar with these shapes, and I would also say get familiar with the stick figure and how you can move it around. Here I'm drawing another one. I forgot I drew this one. So this one I'm also coming up with this out of my head. I'm thinking of a a guy that's got one leg raised up in the air or something. I don't know what he's doing, but he's got one leg down and he lifted one leg up. Just to show you that, you know, you got to start moving your figures around. You don't want that. And this is something that I have to work on too. You don't want your figures just standing there all the time. So struggling with this foot just a little bit. I'm going to keep working on it, I think. So that's going to do it for episode 11, How to Draw Legs. This will be part 1, How to Draw Legs, part 1. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hope you learned something. Practice all this stuff, and I'll see you next time in the next video.